Welcome everyone to another edition of Back and Forth with Becker and Orr. That's Kevin. I'm Clinton. We are going to have some fun today. Lots on the agenda. Kevin, what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, we got a few topics that we have in mind. First of all, we're going to start off with stuff along the lines of, what's gone on over the course of the year? How are investments doing? What's up? What's down? What's moving on? From there, we're going to talk about, what are Christmas movies? How do we find out what exactly would clarify that way? Moving on, Black Friday just happened. Is it a better Black Friday than years before? Followed by, looking at things along the lines of the Electoral College, something that happened yesterday. How does that describe? And finally, we end with our question of the week. So going from where we are, what did we start off with 2020 so far this year?
Yeah, we got lots, and we're absolutely going to get into that. What happened in 2020? A quick reminder, though, before we do, we're happy to help out. You can visit us on that website, which is almost ready to go. We are revamping it. It should be ready and live soon. You can see it on the bottom of the screen. You can also like and share the video. Lots of ways to get a hold of us. Let's jump into that first topic you mentioned there, Kevin. You talked about it. What has happened so far in 2020? It has been quite the year, 2020. We'll pull up the chart. This is a colorful chart, but it shows year by year from 2008 right up until 2020, different asset classes, a U.S. perspective here. So the Canadian number is not on here, but you can see pretty clearly what was up, what was down. And for that 2020 column, Kevin, a lot of green. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's very surprising. If you'd asked me back in March, what are we going to look like for the end of the year? I would have said, chances are we're probably going to be in the red. Nobody said we were going to be in the black by this time. So we've seen quite a recovery. And especially, it's basically in every category except for U.S. REITs and commodities. As you mentioned, it's not Canadian. So the Canadian market's a little less than this only because we do have more energy. We do have more material sort of scenario, but it's along the same trend line. I'm seeing stuff that mostly you wouldn't think of. This reminds me more or less of one of the first times you've seen a really fast snapback. What do you think we continue on like? Is it going to go this way, or are we seeing different numbers going forward?
Yeah, well, it's hard to say exactly what's on the horizon. 2020 has been quite a year. You had a phenomenal drop early in the year, followed by an incredible recovery, a magnitude of recovery very few folks were predicting. I think we are going to get more growth in 2021. Will it be quite the same magnitude? I don't know. Maybe it'll look more like that 2011 mix. We have some green, some red, and it's not just green across the board, but we'll have to wait and see. We'll cross that one off the list. Kevin, what do you got for us next?
Well, seeing as how this is close to the end of the year, Christmas season is around the corner. Basically, in my household, that means that I've got a solid 3 weeks worth of Hallmark movies to be able to see. My wife is just huge into this sort of stuff. Well, whether or not I am is another question. But what do you like to watch around the Christmas season, Clint?
Always a little bit of a debate around this. Is it a Christmas movie? Is it not a Christmas movie? But for me, it's a childhood memory, one I always like to go back to. I'm going to pull it up here. They got a great graphic. Die Hard. You got John McClane there in a Santa hat. Die Hard is absolutely a Christmas movie. I got a whole
No. Christmas movie, it's not. Just because the theme is based around. To me, a Christmas movie should be defined as something around that theme. Elf, Christmas Vacation, A Christmas Story. These are Christmas movies. Die Hard.
It is a Christmas movie. It happens at Christmas. There's Christmas music. There's presents. There's snow at the end. Even his wife's name is Holly. That is a festive name. Absolutely a Christmas movie.
It can't be that way. Otherwise, I got to consider Gremlins. I got to consider When Harry Met Sally. These are not Christmas movies in my mind. It should be around the Christmas theme. But, this is just that there's going to be this debate no matter what you think. I've seen reports on it. Some people consider it, some people don't. What is the groundbreaking rule? Is there any rules for this?
I don't know if there's any rules for this, but I'm going to end on a convincing fact for you here. I wrote down a Twitter poll. So it's on Twitter. It's pretty much science at that stage. They did a Twitter poll on this very topic, and 79% of people said Die Hard is a Christmas movie. So we're ending with the majority here, Kevin, in my favor.
No, I can't buy that. My view is Christmas movie has to deal with a Christmas theme. Just being based on Christmas doesn't count. But we will agree to disagree on this point, and let's see where we can move on from there. So based on that, Christmas, the biggest time of the year to shop is Black Friday. So with Black Friday going on, what did we get for Black Friday this year?
Yeah, Black Friday, different year. Everything in 2020 has been different. It's been the pandemic. You see the headline here of the CNBC article. Not a big surprise, but in-store traffic absolutely down, 52% negative. E-commerce surged up 22%, $9 billion on Black Friday e-commerce. And then if you look at Cyber Monday, which is the Monday following that weekend, an additional $10 billion of shopping done online. And that's actually the biggest e-commerce day, biggest shopping day ever in U.S. history. So some big numbers there. Is this a new trend, Kevin? Are we going to see more of this going forward?
Yeah, I think we will. We've started to see this online shopping trend probably over the last 5 to 10 years. And I think it's because you've had places like Amazon and, of course, all the big department stores have gotten these online sites now that make it a lot easier. You can get it delivered in a few days. There's curbside pickup, the whole 9 yards. I mean, this is really dangerous because my wife's a shopper, and I dread every time I see what's going to go on here. Makes it a lot easier to not have to go out to the store. But yeah, I think we will continue to see this. I do not believe that we're going to see the same scenario we've got now as we will next year, only because if we get things opening up, the people will go back to the stores, but I don't see this being a declining trend anywhere soon. And I mean, are there big winners and big losers in this whole thing?
There definitely are. I agree with you. The 2021 will probably see people return to the store, maybe not in waves, but it'll certainly be more than what we had this year. But that trend will likely continue. And the winners and losers here, unfortunately, the big winners are going to be all the big box stores. They had the money to have a huge online presence to really develop that e-commerce. And the folks that were left behind, unfortunately, the small mom and pop shops. If you had a small store, you needed that in-person presence. Maybe you didn't have the online site, the e-commerce site. So this year would be very tough for you. And this trend is certainly favoring the Walmarts, the Targets, the big stores that are able to develop those online platforms. I think that wraps up the Black Friday. Let's move on to something else that happened just yesterday, the Electoral College. What's going on there, Kevin?
Well, this is the day we've been waiting for. Trump keeps putting it off and putting it off. And the Electoral College is basically, it's more of an academic sort of thing or administrative sort of thing. This is when all the electors get together and they vote as to who they want to be the president. And it's usually based on who won the state. So as we saw back in the election time, back in the beginning of November, they voted along the same lines. 306 votes went to Biden, 232 votes went to Trump. And theoretically, that should be the ending of it. But I don't think we're finished yet. You still have the option to go to the floor and bring this up again. So are we seeing more of this being pushed forward, or is Biden now really the president?
Well, I think officially Biden is one step closer to being the president. There's a lot of procedures here, a lot of bureaucracy. And you're right, people normally do not care about this stuff. It rarely gets brought up in the news. They normally have the vote, the election, and that's it. And then this procedural stuff happens in the background. It's really been pushed to the forefront because Trump is challenging it. So you have the votes. The Navy state certified their results. Their electors went and had the Electoral College vote yesterday, then goes to Congress. They have to approve it as well. And then technically he's officially the president after that, which happens January 6th, that next step. But to answer your question, is it going to end? Probably not. I can't see Trump just conceding. There'll probably be another challenge yet at the next stage. I think he's going to try to nitpick and challenge it every step of the way. I mean, the bigger question, though, Kevin, for an investor, will this matter? Will this make a difference for investors?
No, I think that it's not going to have any bearing on it. I think we've decided, and we saw right after the election, everybody believes that Joe Biden is in going forward. And I believe that all this push and push and push is just somebody that doesn't want to admit defeat, no matter how it is. I mean, I know there was even reading in the paper that in Georgia and Pennsylvania, the Republican electors voted anyways, even though their votes don't count. So as we've seen today, the markets are up and it's had absolutely no bearing. So basically, I think this is all over. On that note, if we're starting to go from there, what's our question of the day that we're getting today?
Yeah, we try to take one every time, a question of the week. I wrote it down here, and there's been lots of headlines around initial public offerings, around IPOs. They've certainly been splashy this year. We had a record-breaking year. What's going on, Kevin, with IPOs?
Yeah, well, IPOs have had a record year this year. And just to clarify, even though we tend to use these acronyms all over the place, an IPO is an initial public offering. It's a company coming to market, as it were, going from sort of a private scenario to a public scenario. We've seen huge numbers this year. And this is all basically done in the last 6 months, because between March and April, nobody, when the market was down, wanted to come to market because nobody was going to buy. And what we've seen is a variety of different IPOs that have come to market. You had a company like Snowflake, which is a software company, set a new record. And we thought that was going to be it. That was followed up by DoorDash, which almost doubled in its opening day. and that was going to be the record. Then Airbnb, should I say, comes out, and we see another record going through. So we've had huge numbers. So the IPO market has been phenomenal. It reminds me somewhat of what went on in 2000. So where do we go from here with this IPO scenario, Clint?
Yeah, that's the question. That's the question. A few of the details there. The IPOs, we've had not a record number of IPOs. There are far more back in that late 90, early 2000 period, but the companies are larger. So the dollar figure raised is where they hit the record, $70 billion raised with these IPOs. And we've seen the investor sentiment. People are gobbling them up, right? A couple of these companies have just shot to the moon the second they've hit the market. I think that means going forward, there's a little bit of euphoria. There's a little bit of investor excitement, not just around IPOs, but around the market in general. Because IPOs typically aren't the safest, most stable company. They are normally a little riskier of a bet. So this means that people have a bit of appetite for risk if they're willing to jump in on these companies on day one of trading on the public market. Often folks will point to this and say, hey, it's euphoria. Maybe you're getting close to a peak. I'm not in that camp. I don't think that's the case. What about for you? Where are you on this?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think as long as the markets continue to be strong and going forward, you're going to see more IPOs coming out. You're going to have more of an appetite for it. We've seen that in March and April. Nobody wanted to get into the market because everything was going down the tubes and it was never going to come back. Now all you're seeing is euphoria, vaccine, everything else. We're getting that sort of scenario coming forward. I agree with you completely. We're probably not done yet. It's probably not the dot-com bubble, but it is something you got to keep your eyes on.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't think I have any more final points on this point. Do you?
I'll end with one quick comment on the IPOs. The type of company coming public is much different than what we had in the late 90s, early 2000s. Back then, If you had an idea and you wrote it on the back of the napkin, as long as it said .com on that napkin, you got money thrown at you. Not the case today. Now you've got large established companies, so it's a different type of IPO, and I think that's important to make that distinction. But a reminder before we close out the show here, you can find us, that website on the bottom of your screen. We're revamping it. It should be live very soon. You can always like, subscribe, share the video with friends. Any last comments, Kevin?
Yeah, my last comment is no matter what you want to say, Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. I'm going to end on that note. So with that, we will be back at Back and Forth in a couple weeks.
Absolutely. Stay safe, everyone.